Hi, boys and girls. This is Mrs. Tarasi. On the screen, it says Fluency Practice. I created this video to show you a way to build your reading fluency at home and to help you become a more fluent reader. Before I get into how to practice fluency, I want to go over what fluency is and why fluency is important. So, to be a fluent reader, that means that you do 4 things and you do them really well. I shared the fluency anchor chart, and this fluency anchor chart comes from Wit and Wisdom. It lists 4 criteria that are necessary to be a fluent reader. The first criteria is accuracy. What do fluent readers do? Fluent readers read without any mistakes. The second criteria is phrasing. What do fluent readers do? They pay attention to punctuation. They chunk information into meaningful pieces. The third criteria is rate or speed. What do fluent readers do? They read at the appropriate speed, not too fast and not too slow. The fourth criteria is expression, and it's cut off a little bit at the bottom of the screen, but there's supposed to be a smiley face and a frowning face. What do fluent readers do? They read words with emotion. I included a reading passage here because I want to show you what a fluent reading of a reading passage sounds like. This passage is from one of my favorite books, Sideways Stories from Wayside School. I chose this passage because, one, I think this book is really funny, and two, I wanted to show you that you can practice your reading fluency with any kind of reading text. It doesn't have to be something from school. It doesn't have to follow a certain phonics pattern. Whatever you want to use to practice your reading fluency is fantastic. So, as I read, I want you to pay attention to my fluency, those 4 criteria. My accuracy, I'm reading the words correctly. My phrasing, I'm stopping at punctuation and I'm not stopping in the middle of sentences for no reason. My rate or my speed, I'm not too fast and not too slow, and also my expression. I'm reading it with some emotion. Here I go. Let's see how I do. Introduction. This book contains 30 stories about the children and teachers at Wayside School. But before we get to them, there is something you ought to know so that you don't get confused. Wayside School was accidentally built sideways. It was supposed to be only 1 story high with 30 classrooms all in a row. Instead, it is 30 stories high with 1 classroom on each story. The builder said he was very sorry. The children at Wayside like having a sideways school. They have an extra large playground. The children and teachers described in this book all go to class on the top floor. So there are 30 stories from the 30th story of Wayside School. It has been said that these stories are strange and silly. That is probably true. However, when I told stories about you to the children at Wayside, they thought you were strange and silly. That is probably also. Hopefully, you were able to pick out the criteria for fluent readers as I read that short reading passage to you. Now that I've explained what fluency is, I want to share why reading fluency is important. There are 3 big reasons I can think of why reading fluency is important. First, when you read fluently, you can better understand what you're reading. It leads to greater reading comprehension. That's our whole point of reading, to understand. And if you're reading smoothly and correctly, you're going to understand what you're reading. The second reason fluency is important is that it helps you become a more independent reader. The more you read, the easier you read, the more you can read. Think of how many books you could read and how many stories you will know as you become a fluent reader. And the third reason fluency is important is that you will be spending so much less time on assignments, on homework, and on anything that you have to read because you're reading easier, more quickly, you're reading more smoothly, you're enjoying the story with expression. So think about how much less time you'll spend on homework if you're able to read fluently. So, as I said with this video, I was going to introduce you to a way to practice reading fluency. So you're going to need a few things for this reading fluency practice. You're going to need a reading passage. You can use your fluency passage from Wit and Wisdom that you got from your classroom. You could use your decodable text. Or maybe you want to use a passage of a book that you have at home, a favorite story. You need a timer, a 1-minute timer. Think about where you could access that. Your iPad, computer, phone, a watch, an Apple Watch, anything like that. You need a graph, which I'll share with you on a couple of screens, and something to draw on the graph with, pencil or crayon. For people, you need yourself and you also need a partner. It could be a grown-up at home, a brother or sister, a babysitter, a friend, someone that can track your reading and help you recognize how you're doing. Finally, the amount of time. This just takes 6 minutes a day. It's quick, and you will see such an improvement in your reading fluency. So I'm going to give you an example of how to practice this. All right, I put a copy of that text that I just read right here on the screen again. There's also a 1-minute timer. I put it on the screen because I just wanted to be able to see it to give myself an idea. There's also a little tiny red line. The reason that is there is because when that 1 minute is up, I'm going to put that onto my page of where I stopped. In real life, obviously you don't want to mark up any books, but if you have a passage on a piece of paper, you can take a pencil or crayon and mark where you stopped. All right, I'm going to start my timer. I'm going to read it fluently. Here I go. This book contains 30 stories about the children and teachers at Wayside School. But before we get to them, there is something you ought to know so that you don't get confused. Wayside School was accidentally built sideways. It was supposed to be 1 story high. Only 1 story high, with 30 classrooms all in a row. Instead, it is 30 stories high, with 1 classroom on each story. The builder said he was very sorry. The children at Wayside like having a sideways school. They have an extra large playground. The children and teachers described in this book all go to class on the top floor. So there are 30 stories from the 30th. My time is up. I stopped at the word 30th. I wonder if it's going to let me slide this. Nope. Let me X out of my full screen here and head into my smaller screen so it can let me. Okay. Let's see where I was. Right here. So I'm going to put that there because that's where I stopped. Let me go back to my big screen. Okay. And now I'm going to count my words up. So I counted them when I paused the video and counted them so you didn't all have to listen to me count up all of my words. So I came up with 102 words. That's pretty good. I bet if I read it again, I could read more words. So what I want to do is I want to remember that 102 words. So I'm going to create a fluency graph. I'm going to head to this page and I want to show this to you. And it has words per minute on this side, the date across the bottom. And then in the middle is where I will create my graph. Now I took a screenshot of this and put it into my slideshow so that I would be able to just write on it, even though I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that. I could put in a text box down here. So today is 9/24. It's September 24th. Today And then I'm going to color all the way up to 100, this line right here, 102. Ah, there's that marker I could have just used in the first place. So I'm going to color up to 102. If it'll let me. Probably not. Well, since it's not letting me do that, I'll just put a shape on up to 102. Now you'll be using this with markers or crayons, so you'll actually have a much easier time of it. So there you go. I made mine up to 102. I tracked my fluency for today. So what do we do next? How often do I practice? I would want you to do that same routine. Your partner telling you to begin, timing you for 1 minute for a whole week. Track your progress. See if your speed improves. Remember all those other attributes or those characteristics of fluency, criteria for fluency, your accuracy, your rate, your phrasing, and your expression. Also, ask her to answer questions about what you read. Say to someone, hey, did you hear who was the main character? Or maybe your grown-up can ask you, how did that story end? So I'm really excited to hear how it goes. Happy reading!